One Professor Vaidyalinga Sarma, a leading exponent of Sreemad Bhagavatam, especially of the Saptaham style, he was called and he conducted it. Some 200 and odd people were attending and they were very, very happy. In that village, no such Saptaham was held any time in the past. So they were very happy. Most of the listeners were floating in devotional fulfillment. At the end of it, there was something very unprecedented. They went to Purushottam Swamiji and said, Swamiji, we have heard the Saptaham. It was very good and exhilarating. But we have only this much to say. The Saptaham is only the beginning of our Srimad Bhagavata association. We want to hear more about Srimad Bhagavatam, particularly the original messages and values which Vyasadeva has particularly incorporated in Srimad Bhagavatam. So this Saptaham will not be sufficient. So will you arrange something whereby the Srimad Bhagavata text itself will be exposed in the form of continuous discourses, continuous lectures. Then Swamiji called me and discussed the subject. So I said, where is the place to conduct, etc. And finally we hit upon a plan. And that is how I said, the Satram should have a distinction by itself. So it should be a Tattva Samiksha Satram. And we are continuing. It's an yearly event. So my association with Srimad Bhagavatam became intensified because of this event and the compulsions it brought forward. So far as the values are concerned, you should understand, values can be best narrated through different types of episodes and events. So for any narration to become effective, the narration has to rest upon 3 or 4 fundamental factors. One factor or constituent is time, secondly place, and thirdly personality. I don't know whether you are hearing me. If I have to tell you anything in an effective manner, I will have to present it in the form of a narration. And I can narrate only incidents, events, episodes. And in order to convey episodes, I have to refer to it occurred at such and such a time, in such and such a place, and the personalities involved were these and these. So no epic narration, no value narration can be except with reference to time, place and personality. There must be a number of instances also, different types of situations, different types of confrontations, different types of interactions. Now suppose there is a Bhagavad Gita, a text which somebody wrote. It is not something like that. Pure philosophy being discussed and taught in the university campuses. We have got a background. What is that? There was the unprecedented Mahabharata war. Fought in Kurukshetra. It is only 120 or 40 kilometers away from Delhi. It was the place where 45 lakhs of warriors assembled. Duryodhana's army consisted of 11 Akshahunis. Pandavas had only 7, altogether 18. All the warriors independently with a view to fight, kill or get killed. Are you following me? Every individual fighter had assembled there with an individual resolution to fight and kill or to fight and get killed. And 45 lakhs were present. And finally, Bhishma blew the conch. And the Kaurava army raised all the war cries, beating kettle drums, etc. Krishna returned it by his Panchajanya conch. Then followed all the others in beautiful order. The discharge of arrows alone was to take place. Everything else was over. Right then, Arjuna had a special, instant, immediate compulsion. What is that? A sudden compulsion. Krishna, wait. I want to survey the army and find out with whom shall I fight. Drive my chariot and station it properly in a vantageous point so that I will be able to examine the army fairly and well and decide with whom I have to specifically battle. Krishna was always all-knowing, clever and dexterous. He drove the chariot, straight, stopped it. Bhishmadrona pramukhataha sarvesham cha mahikshidam Uvaja Partha Pashyaidan Samavedan Guru Nidhi. He drove the chariot, stationed it right in front of Bhishma and Drona, and then said, Arjuna, see the army now. This is your grandfather who had put you on his lap, given you morsels of food when you were young. He is the great man, infallible person. He cannot be conquered by anybody. He is particularly enriched and empowered by his Naishtigya Brahmacharya, lifelong celibacy. He made a sacrifice for the sake of his father without the father asking for it. Such a great person, your grandfather. He is the commander-in-chief. Close to him is your teacher, from whom you have imbibed all the archery skill. You have to battle with them. Are you prepared? It is true that you have the Pashupadastra in your hand. Very good. But this requires something more. Do you have that inner enrichment, that inner kavacha for the battle? Examine it. Arjuna crumbled. His mouth went dry. Gandiva slipped from his hand. The whole body was shivering, trembling. And the intelligence was saying, this is a colossally sinful war. Don't fight. He was unable to stand. He sat. What did I say? A picturesque setting. This is what narration means. It is not a textbook written by somebody. When Arjuna crumbled in this manner, telling Krishna quite a lot of his sentiments, troubles, and whatever he has heard, understood, etc., Krishna said, nonsense. This cannot be accepted. You think it is a sympathy for your kith and kin, but in reality it is your weakness. Weakness, imbecility, klaibyamma asmagamah partha naidatvai upapadyade kshudram hridayadaurbalyam tyaktvottishta parantapa. I, as a knowledgeable person, an intimate friend of yours, cannot accept this plight at all. You are a valorous fighter. You have already won many wars, and you have come here to fight and show your excellence. Right at that time, after 13 years of preparation, you come here and then say, I am unable to fight, I am sympathetic. War ground is not a place for exhibiting or displaying sympathy. Come out with your valor, resolve, determination, resoluteness. I will not accept it. This is dishonorable. This will not lead you to heaven. It will be damned in hell. It cannot be accepted. When this kind of an exhortation Krishna produced, Arjuna suddenly revived himself to an extent, and he started inquiring further. Now this is called epic narration. A variety of instances are presented. Time, place and personality are also equally there. And such narrations become the message for value communication. You know, our epics have become so famous. People are wondering whether epics are history. Certainly not, my dear thinkers and intellectuals. Our epics are prehistoric. When I say prehistoric, how much do we have history? 600 BC, not more than that. 600 BC, that's all. But all our instances, all our events took place far earlier. When it is prehistoric, history has nothing to say. It has to keep quiet. Right from the prehistoric times, our epics have been prevalent here as the thought processes, emotional processes, intellectual processes, spiritual, ethical, philosophical vibrations in the minds of the people. They have made continuously history in our land. About Mahatma Gandhi it is said, his experiments with truth because of one Harishchandra portrayed in Devi Bhagavatam. That one Harishchandra, he was at the back of Mahatma Gandhi's truthful life, experiments with truth. Similarly, so many children are born of our epics. They continue to be born. These epics have got an eternal relevance. When I quote to you an instance referring to my little experience of my life, it will not become static and the society will not accept. See, whatever the epic wants to convey, it is disconnected from the time, place, personality and different instances. It would be just like a textbook where everyone should be truthful, everyone should be honest, everyone should be compassionate. I don't think it will have any fascination for the minds of the people. Any kind of a narration will have to be sufficiently evoking emotional and intellectual responses from the readers and listeners. I would like to put it in this way. Any value, when rightly presented, it's not only value, principle, message, ideal, etc. If it is rightfully presented, it must be able to evoke an adequate emotional persuasion from the listener or the reader. So a value becomes so only when it is able to evoke emotional persuasion, not only that, intellectual compulsion also. So the value has to be presented in a compulsive manner. Emotionally it should be appealing, intellectually it should be rational and compulsive. Now the epics are able to do this. So whenever we think of the situation like Mahabharata war, Arjuna confronted, baffled, and finally he crumbled. Now this is what happens to the human individual when he interacts with the world. So what is the message? The message is that like Arjuna, anybody can, in spite of his otherwise great attainments in life, as long as he is spiritually hollow, philosophically hollow, he will not be able to survive in this world. So the message becomes lasting. So Bhagavad Gita as well as Arjuna are very popular, not only in India, in the whole world now. Bhagavad Gita has been translated perhaps into all the world languages. People have understood how relevant the war dialogue is. That it is a war, you strip it of all the details like time, place and personality. Even now the message is applicable to all human minds and human intellects. This is what we have to understand. So the epical narration is very important. That is the one which makes history here. How many Ramas are born in our land? To some extent Krishnas also are born. May not be a full measure Rama and a full measure Krishna, at least percentage wise. In any examination, not all students pass, say all the 100 marks, nobody scores. Similarly, we may not become full-fledged Ramas and Krishnas and Arjunas, but we will certainly become percentages of these personalities, and even now it is happening. Now, all the messages I said relate to the human mind, and that is why they become eternal and everlasting. Let us take devotion. What is this devotion? It is springing from the human heart and the human mind. What for? To enrich the mind, to enrich the heart, to enlighten the intelligence. When I am worshipping Lord, it is not the Lord who is going to be pleased by my worship. We are cooking food, eating. It is to provide food and nourishment to our system. Similarly, devotion also is a pursuit of ours which we take up at our own option in order to fulfill our needs. The earlier this fact is understood, better. Not that if I pray to God and I praise Him, God becomes happier and He becomes fatter. Suppose the devotees are not feeding God, do you mean to say He will starve? And does God require anything at all that the devotees give? Is not the whole world produced and maintained by Him? And what can we give Him who produces and bestows upon us everything that we are enjoying or experiencing? So the earlier this is understood, the better. God is a concept of the human mind. This is something that I would like all of you to understand. We have many words which we have coined from our alphabet. Alphabet also is our own creation. Just like we are saying dog, cow, bull, buffalo, etc. God also is a word. And this word has its meaning. For whom? For us. By God, we mean a certain idea, a certain truth, or a certain proposition. It is for us to explain what we mean by God. And it is equally for us to explain how to approach this God, how to worship Him, and what are the benefits of worship. So if you think in this manner, you will find The whole subject arises from the human mind and perception. It subsists on the same mind. Ultimately, it has to fulfill and complete in the same human mind. This is something that every one of us will have to think. The children, the present children, they are averse to so-called religious morality, ethics, etc. There are children who tell the parents, somebody speaks truth, he is never successful in the world. Another man speaks lies, he is very successful. So why are you parents asking me to become truthful? When I hear it, I become very affected. I ask you one question, can lies ever sustain the world or your life? When I ask you what is your name, how many answers are there? Have you had your dinner or lunch? When I ask you, how many answers can you give? Who is your father? How many answers can you have? Everywhere truth and truth alone is sustaining life. See, we are getting into a bus which says going to Connaught Circus. The board is there. You get into the bus reaches you in Connaught Circus. There are so many trains meant for different destinations. You purchase a ticket many days earlier, months earlier. And with the ticket, if you go to the platform and look for your berth or seat, the seat is reserved there. Do you mean to say that any time untruthfulness can ever sustain the world? What about the Mother Earth? Tell me. Earth has been revolving on its own axis, taking 24 hours of the day, giving us day and night. Similarly, the earth is circumambulating, going around the sun, taking 365 plus days. These have been going on for countless number of millennia. There is no change. Is there any change in the gravity of the earth? Is there any change in the friction of the earth? All these are eternal and lasting laws. Similarly, truthfulness also is a rhythm of the human mind. It can never be flouted or disregarded. Understand it very well. So God is a concept. And using this concept, what are we to do is something that we have to know, we have to explain as Shastras do. It is for enriching our own mind, empowering our own mind. Just like food and nourishment and exercises are necessary to keep the body fit, if you want to have a flexible mind, a confident mind, a powerful mind, a creative mind, a self-sustaining mind, then the mind must have sufficient values in its stock. It should always adhere to values. Sreemad Bhagavatam presents these values, and I always say they must become the warp and woof of the daily life of our household. That is my intention. As long as Srimad Bhagavata values do not become the warp and woof of our daily life in the household, I don't think there is going to be any salvation, cohesion, unity or strength in the country. Because I am exposing Srimad Bhagavata, I say Srimad Bhagavata values. Similarly, Bhagavad Gita has got values. There may be values presented in other spiritual and religious texts also. All of them are included. Nothing is an exception. So far as Srimad Bhagavata is concerned, by calling it a Mahapurana and discussing it as a Purana is not sufficient. The importance should not be given to the angelish and the godly elements. The importance should be given to the human elements in Srimad Bhagavata narration. How are these? Some of them I shall explain as a prelude or a preliminary to our basic discussion on the 11th skandha. Srimad Bhagavata, at the end of every chapter you will find Srimad Bhagavate Mahapurane Paramahamsyam Samhitayam. At the end of every chapter you will find this kind of a phraseology. There is a word called Paramahamsya Samhita. Paramahamsya Samhita. It is not a Mahapurana alone, but a Samhita of the nature of Paramahamsya. What does it mean? It requires explanation, it requires insight also. A Samhita is such a comprehensive presentation when there is a fundamental thought process upheld there. As a corollary, the Samhita composer or writer will also bring in all contemporary ideologies, subsidiary and ancillary to them. So it is a discussion that is very digressive in character. All the thought processes prevalent or current at the time of composing the Samhita would be presented there. But all of them will be supportive only to confirm and emphasize the main ideology or thought process. Srimad Bhagavata is one such. That is why it is called Samhita. It discusses the world and its constitution. It discusses God and His place and importance. It discusses devotion. It discusses human life in all the different levels and facets. Say, human life. How is a child to be born? What is the time to be selected for pregnancy? That pregnancy causing event, that meeting. Which is the best time? Which is the propitious hour? And what should be the thoughts while having the conjugal meeting? How does a fetus grow in the mother's womb? When it grows in the mother's womb, what can be done best by the mother and the father so that the fetus, apart from the biological growth and fruition, will also have a very sustaining and qualitative psychology? How is it possible? And what should be done at birth and after birth? What is the manner in which one should nurse the child, look at the child, care the child, so that apart from the body, the inner structure and personality would also be nourished? So at every point of time, there is something for Srimad Bhagavatam to say. And what is the wonderful event called marriage? What should be the attitude of the marrying partners? And how should the partnership be held? What should a householder think basically and fundamentally about his own role and mission in life? The household life is very important. It is from there all the other ashramites, all the others belonging to the three other orders of life, all of them are born from the householders. I am a sannyasin, but I was not born in an ashram. I was born as a child to a set of parents in a certain household. As a child, I suckled from my mother's breast. And while suckling, I have suckled not merely the milk, but also a culture, a tradition, a kind of a spiritual refinement and attunement. It is that basically worked in me. As I started growing in my body and mind, it is what I got from my mother and father in the form of an inheritance, plus acquisition, whatever they provided in the initial years of my life. It is these factors that stood in good stead for me to become a sannyasin. I went to a guru, sought initiation from him, did intense meditation, sadhana, austerity, and then I apparently flowered as a sannyasin, to be doing or to be living in the manner in which I live. So the breeding ground was householdership. So the household is very, very important. How is it to be led? What should be our ideal? Should money and property and mere family, should it be our ideal? Or there is something greater and deeper which will look after all these facets of life? All these are discussed in Srimad Bhagavatam. What are the fundamental constituents of a good character? What are the elements of behavior? So I would like to put it in this manner. Characteral excellence, behavioral majesty, and interactional sublimity. This is what I am saying. All these are discussed. So it is a samhita. It is not just discussing devotion. And it is a Paramahamsa Samhita because it is written by a Paramahamsa like Vedavyasa. He was not just a historian. He was not an administrator. He was a person who had the spiritual life, the ascetic life for him. Such a person who always contemplated upon the supreme truth. That alone he was doing. He was not an ordinary man. Hamsa is a reference to the individual life or jiva. Hamsa is actually a poetic concept, an imaginary bird, which has the quality of separating milk and water. Suppose you have half a liter of milk added to 50 liters of water and the mixture is placed before the Hamsa, the swan. You will find the swan will never feel morose or hateful. The swan will simply separate the milk, drink it and give you back the water. The water and the milk, when they are joined, suddenly the water changes the color and all of them look like milk. The same happens. You look at the world and call it worldly. Now I for one will say, it is not worldly, it is godly. When God manifested as the world, the world becomes godly or God becomes worldly. It is an important point. It is an important point. So like the swan, we must be able to extract the presence of godliness from everything in this world. And when you are able to do so with your own viveka, discrimination, and your life becomes fulfilled, you are called Paramahamsa. Such Paramahamsas alone can write a book like Srimad Bhagavatam, a text of an eternal value and relevance. Not only that, Shukamuni, who exposed it to Parikshit, Parikshit means a Maharaja. See, if X told something to an ordinary man, nobody will care for it. Maharaja, he has the maximum or the greatest position in the society. He rules the world. His word is the last. He must be very knowledgeable. He must be true. He must be good. He must be value oriented. Everything should be good about the Raja. And all our discussions you will find are between a sage and a ruler. Always. That gives more credibility, more honorability to the discussion. So, Shukamuni is the person who narrated it to Parikshit. Parikshit was a Maharaja belonging to the Pandava clan, lineage. And Shukamuni, he was very young, only 16 years old. While his father was an ascetic living in a hermitage, in a cottage, Shukamuni was a wandering monk. He did not have any apparel, a piece of cloth anywhere on the body. What does it mean? He did not feel like concealing any part of the body. It was an open life, and whatever he spoke, thought and narrated, it was without any reservation. So it was an unreserved, unhidden, open narration that he made to Parikshit. Only such a narration could be effective for that king, particularly at that time, before Takshaka came and beat him. He had only 7 days. In the 7 days, Parikshit's mind should be completely transformed. All the impurities and stain should be washed off, and he should have a very resplendent, very brilliant, luminous spiritual mind. And Shukamuni was able to accomplish it.